Here's our agenda for today's session. We're going to start off with some introductory concepts. And when I step through introductory concepts, I like to use real-world examples. Also look to the regulatory standards. We'll take a deeper dive into the Stark law, what I call the key tenets of defensibility and some of the Stark exceptions, including a step through the 2016 changes as well. After that, we'll be talking about conducting Stark's compliance audits and reasons you would be conducting them. And I'll talk about the auditing process, and I'll give you some general strategies for mitigating risk. We'll wrap things up at that time with a Q&A. So I really appreciate your time today. In today's webinar agenda is, as we said, unfolding. We have lots to try to tackle during the session. So let's start things off with introductory concepts. And like I said before, I like to step through the rules, regulations, and trends in this area using real-world examples. And this slide right here in front of you really steps through, this is slide 6, the thoughts on enforcement and considerations for managing risk generally. When we look at today's enforcement climate, we have more and more integration and financial relationships with physicians in the market than we've ever had before. Many healthcare organizations grew up without employing or contracting with physicians, and physicians were operating independently. Now we have most organizations are engaging in significant contracting with physicians, and actually many of them now are actually employing the physicians either directly through the hospital, through a system, physician organization, or multiple physician organizations, and we're seeing more and more employment. And when we take that additional integration and financial relationships we're seeing with physicians and the very rigid and technical Stark law regulatory framework that also exists in that space, then coupled together, we have a very difficult regime. And on top of that, there has been aggressive government enforcement. We've seen more Stark law cases over the last several years with very large damage figures. And many organizations are viewing the existence of those cases and the large damage figures as indicative of enterprise risk. So many organizations are treating Stark law compliance and physician contracting as an area of enterprise risk that requires a risk mitigation strategy. So as we work with healthcare organizations and think about managing risk, I want to step through a couple of thoughts in the 3 bullet points at the bottom of the slide here. It's just a general approach to managing risk in this area. First of all, your compensation arrangements with referring physicians have to be defensible under the healthcare regulations. If your existing counsel or individuals within your contracting program don't understand how you would ultimately defend your arrangements, I think you should be pressing them on those questions. They should be able to articulate which technical defenses you'll use, which Stark exceptions you've looked to, and also they should be able to articulate your general approach regarding what I call the 3 tenets of defensibility. And those tenets of defensibility are fair market value, commercial reasonableness, and not taking into account referrals. It's important that you pin down those issues, those 3 tenets of defensibility, because if your compensation arrangements are ever challenged, it's likely they will be challenged on those 3 tenets. And lastly, importantly, documentation in your governance process, how you go about your business planning, your valuation, and how you go about all of your contracting and compensation processes really should be structured and built towards supporting defensibility. Those are the steps, those are the processes, those documents are what you're going to look to if your compensation arrangements are ever challenged in a Stark law action. And so it's really important you're documenting all of the appropriate non-referral-based reasons you're entering into any transaction. So again, those are some good considerations when you think about how to manage risk going forward.